Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores and welcome everybody to the Council Chambers this evening. It's good to have you here. The second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest and nature thereof, and I'll ask any member if they have any pecuniary interest they'd like to declare. Seeing none, of course you can declare one any time if you need to. We do not have any additions, deletions, or amendments. We do not have any open forum. That moves us on to delegations, and we have 3 delegations this evening. I'll just remind our delegations that our delegations are 10 minutes in length, and if we come up against the 10 minutes, I'll give you a gentle reminder, but I'm sure that's not going to happen. So that moves on to our first delegation, and maybe I'll turn over to the CAO to introduce this one.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate that. So I'd like to introduce Brenda Orchard. Brenda she has 2 roles, but tonight she's representing my professional organization, the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. She's on the national board as the Ontario representative. As members of council will know that the town recently received a national award for innovation, and she's going to do a presentation that has a short video that we'll be showing in a second related to that. And Brenda is also her day job, so that's the rest of the time. Her day job is that she is the CAO of the County of Lennox and Addington. So we welcome her tonight. She's come all the way to beautiful Saugeen Shores to make this presentation, and we appreciate it.
Well, good evening, council, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Very pleased to be here to present the Willis Award of Innovation, CAMA's wonderful award, annual award to the town of Saugeen Shores. And every year we do this award because we want to celebrate excellence in municipal administration. We want to show the innovation, the creativity, and share the best practices, and we share it across the country with all of our colleagues so that flattery's imitation's the best form of flattery. People across the country will pick up those ideas and use them across the country. So isn't that wonderful that the great work that your staff do will plant seeds in other places? I think it's wonderful. So because we have different sized communities across the country, we've broken it into 3 categories. So we have the under 20,000 population, and we have the 20,000 to 100,000 population, and then we have the over 100,000 population. So obviously you've won in the Willis category for the under 20,000 population, and I think that's really special because it's extra, I don't have to tell you this, it's extra hard when you're a small community to find the money to do creative, innovative things. I think it's extra hard. So I think it's extra special that you've won in the 20,000 category. So I want to share with you some of the evaluation criteria because on our committee it's CAOs from across the country. They take this really seriously when they're doing these awards. It's very competitive. And they look at the extent that the program or the project is innovative, it's creative, and exemplifies significant change. They looked at its impact on professional administration. They look at the potential for the program to be transferable to other organizations, other communities. They look at the impact of the program or service on this municipality, and they also look at the sustainability of those results and the transferability of those results to other municipalities. So it's really quite a stringent criteria that they look at for that. So the Willis Award, it's in recognition of Jack Willis for his contributions to CAMA. And as I said, we look at exceptional innovation and meritorious initiative. So I'm very pleased to be here tonight to give you that award, but we do have a video that we created to celebrate your good work.
Congratulations to the town of Saugeen Shores, Ontario, winner of the 2019 CAMA Willis Award for Innovation in the under 20,000 population category for its Shore Report podcast. The Shore Report is a municipal podcast with an objective to increase communication to residents and investors. A podcast is a web-based audio file, and in the case of Shore Report, it does not include video and is not live. It is a pre-recorded, engaging, and informative conversation, which is then uploaded to iTunes and SoundCloud. These platforms are then leveraged through the municipal website and through social media. Storytelling is identified as a priority within the town of Saugeen Shores communication strategy. The free and inclusive access to a podcast provides an innovative solution to tell municipal project stories, local business stories, development success stories, and is a platform to discuss the economic opportunity provided by local industry. As of April 2019, the podcast has 71 episodes posted and has over 8,000 listens in 50 countries. This is an extraordinary reach for a community of less than 14,000 people. And the cost of $200 a year to produce makes it affordable for all municipalities. The Shore Report can be found online at saugeenshores.ca/shore report. Congratulations to the town of Saugeen Shores, Ontario, winner of the 2019 CAMA Willis Award for Innovation.
So if I can, just one more thing I'd like to share with you. I don't have to tell you you have great staff. I'm sure you know you have great staff. But I hope you understand how special it is that CAOs across the country are saying, yeah, you've got great staff. And they're doing great work, and it's really appreciated. And also, you have a great council. You must. Because it takes a good council to support staff, to be creative and to be innovative. So this is as much a congratulations to council as it is congratulations to staff. Great work. And I do have the award that I'm giving back to you.
Sure. Thank you very much, and thanks for throwing us in there as council. But I think it really is an award for our staff, and I think you're absolutely right that we do have outstanding staff here in the town of Saugeen Shores, and I think just on behalf of council and the whole municipality, I want to extend a particular congratulations to Jessica Linthorne and Jay Posner, who are our hosts, long-standing hosts of the Shore Report podcast, do a huge amount of work on that, and really deliver an outstanding product for us, and something that I know that our whole community is proud of. So, so congratulations to them. Congratulations to the entire to David and the entire municipal administration. I know council is very proud, and we're very pleased to be the recipients of this prestigious award. And I will come forward, and maybe Jessica will come forward, and we'll receive it. How's that sound, David? Okay, that's great. So that moves us now on to our second delegation. Just give me a second. And it is from Vicky Tamori and Wayne Kaufman from Marine Heritage. And they're here to talk to us about Marine Heritage and give us a festival update. Vicky.
Did I turn this on? So I'd like to thank Mayor Charbonneau and council and town staff for letting me speak tonight. I'm here tonight representing an extraordinary volunteer effort that's right here in Saugeen Shores. For some of you that may not know who I am, I'm Vicky Tamori, and I am the chairman of the Marine Heritage Society, and along with the Propeller Club and our awesome volunteers, we manage the Chantry Island tours. So the Marine Heritage Society and the Propeller Club are a non-profit group of volunteers, and we're dedicated to the preservation and the enhancement of our marine history. We consist of 12 board members, and we have about 125 awesome volunteers. So our biggest project was the Chantry Island restoration. Our group got its start because of a community study done in the mid-90s. It was a Dr. David Douglas who came to the then Town of Southampton Council to do a study and determine how the town was doing. They invited residents from all ages and did roundtable discussions about how they saw their town. The residents were invited to express their likes, dislikes, and that's when the Chantry Island Restoration Project was born. So if you look at the picture here, you see Chantry Island. The house has no roof, and everything had fallen into ruin. So after the light was automated in 1956, the keeper no longer had to live out there, and so, as you can see, everything fell into ruin. So our group, after this study, our group found the 5 levels of government that we had to work with in order to get permission to be over at Chantry Island and to restore the keeper's cottage. So we found the original plans and we restored the cottage. Things like the timbers were not available at the local hardware store because they were 12 inches by 12 inches by 24 feet long. So our guys cut 200-year-old hemlock trees from one of Bob Trelford's farms, and we milled the wood ourselves. Then they barged it over to Chantry Island. In 2001, we opened the tours to Chantry Island, and to date we've taken over 23,000 visitors. The interior of the house is decorated, period furniture from the museum and donors, and the tour includes an actual tour of the keeper's cottage, the gardens around it, and the majestic imperial tower. So then we had to get people out there, so we found the old water rescue boat in a barn, and the guys restored it. It was a 1970s boat, and we used it for 10 years. But then we went to council and we asked for a loan. So the town at the time lent us $125,000 to build a new boat. So in 2011, the new boat arrived, and we were given 10 years to pay it back. We paid it back in 2.5. Another thing our group manages and looks after is the Saugeen front range and rear range, and also McNabb's. There's 3 range lights that are icons in our community. Right now, the Saugeen front range has quite a bit of damage from the weather, and it's going to get looked after. And the rear range we're opening on July 1st. We're going to be opening it for Ontario Historical Places Day. So this is in the 80s when we had to stop a group of, well, what had happened was they were going to put aluminum siding on the range. So they stripped the shingles from it. And I was actually at a Shambat dinner meeting and got a phone call from one of our local historians who asked if we could stop the work the next day so he could find out who he had to talk to about not aluminum siding. They didn't want aluminum siding on it. They wanted the shingles to go back on. So we put our kids around it and we had signs and we wouldn't let the workers do their job until John Weichel could find out who ordered the aluminum siding and how we could prevent that from happening, and we did prevent it from happening, and it's still shingles. In 2009, we totally restored the McNabb Point range light, and then in 2012, our group was invited to speak to a Senate commission in Ottawa because we had a success story. So the commission was looking for a success story. They found one in us. Mike Sterling and myself traveled to Ottawa, and we spoke with the senators about how we had done all of this work with volunteers, with donations, with fundraising. We didn't ask for any government funding. We got no government funding at all, and it was quite a success. But what they were looking to do is they were looking to try and download lighthouses and maybe sell them. And anyway, I think they sort of listened to us because we also wanted to make sure ours were designated as historical sites so that we could protect them from aluminum siding. And that did happen. So in 2012, all 3 of our range lights were actually the first group of range lights or lighthouses that were designated as Heritage Lighthouse protected. So the Lighthouse Protection Act. So our partners have always been the Town of Saugeen Shores, staff and council, Bruce County Museum, Chantry Island Shambats, a local service group that has given us well over $26,000 to date, Saugeen Shores Chamber, and the Southampton Rotary Club. So who comes to Chantry? We're hoping you will. What a better way to show off our hard work than to invite the community leaders, so I'm here to extend an invitation to the Mayor and Council and also to town staff. We also have international travelers. Just yesterday I had a couple come from London, England that wanted to see Chantry Island. We have lighthouse enthusiasts that travel all over the world. They make all of their holiday plans just to see lighthouses. One particular couple, their license plate said Lighthouse Hunters, and they told us that we were their 849th lighthouse that they had seen. So we tracked, and also the birders, because it's a federal bird sanctuary. There's tons of birders that want to see what's over there. So this is our 19th season. Our economic impact on our tours is roughly $1.3 million, and that's spent in our community. We have people that just drive up for the day from Toronto just to go on our tour. We have people that do stay. We have people that try and do all the lighthouses all up in the peninsula. So we have quite a variety, but it is an international tour. So we hope to see you there soon, and I thank you for the time. I'd like to now introduce to you Captain Wayne Sparrow. And
it's time for the pirate to speak. Thank you for this opportunity, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your continued support. This festival wouldn't go on if it wasn't for the support we get from you people and your staff. We also have a number of, no one showed me how to work this thing, so I'll push buttons and see what happens. There we go, backwards. No, partners and sponsors. As before, these are our main sponsors. As you can see, with Bruce Power, Bruce Telecom, the Southampton BIA, the municipality of Saugeen Shores. But this year we also have OPG on board. That's a first for them. So we are growing. It's becoming bigger and bigger every year. Another thing new this year is we have sponsors for T-shirts for all of our volunteers. So anybody that volunteers will be getting a 9th annual logo on the front of it, big words and volunteer on the back, and the name of 10 businesses local that have sponsored in both communities to help us with this festival. So that's something new this year. Also, because this is such a special bicycle community, we like to promote our festival as a bicycle-friendly festival. We offer a free bike valet at all our events. So we encourage people to bring their bicycles as opposed to driving. And also the trolley this year will be altering its route for the Saturday and coming down past the park at Pioneer Park. So you're welcome to jump on the trolley in Port Elgin and come to our festival in Southampton. So that's new this year as well. We promote it as a fun, family-free festival. And that's why we need you and our other sponsors to maintain that level of free. I'm a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and my biggest reward from the whole festival is it takes the parents at least 2 weeks to wipe the smiles off the children's faces after they've fallen in the water with me. So it is a community event. We do include many other nonprofit organizations to help us with the event. We couldn't do it without them as well. Again, this year we're kicking it off on Friday night. I'd like to extend a welcome to you. The museum wonderfully opens their doors. It's free of charge for a family to come in and enjoy the museum on Friday night. We have a barbecue, a cash bar, and there'll be activities outside both front and back of the museum for the children. And it's a great place to kick off our weekend, so mark your calendars. Then on Saturday we head to Pioneer Park. This is where most of the events on Saturday take place, right in Pioneer Park, and what I call, I don't think it's officially a name yet, but I think it should be Heritage Bay. The little bay in front of Pioneer Park where we hold all the water events. So we have cardboard boat races, canoe races, challenges, a big canoe challenge, children's gold hunt. And I sign every certificate for them, that how much gold they gathered on the beach, and I help from my brother Jack Sparrow. He left his gold there. That's what I tell them. So this year also we hope to grow, and we definitely have grown our marketplace. We'll have a vendors market in the Pioneer Park. crafters and artisans. I think we're upwards of 25, 30 vendors now. So it's growing and more each day. So another new one this year is we'll have live entertainment from 2 p.m., so directly following the gold hunt. We're going to have local talent. We have a gentleman that stepped forward to take that part of the festival on for us to entice local talent. We also have a backup band that's willing to work with the local talent, so if they're nervous and it's their first time on a stage, they'll help them out. So we're hoping that that'll be, this is the first for that this year, and we're hoping to grow that. So there'll be music in the tent all afternoon, and then of course the fireman's fish fry, no one can miss that. And there will be a beer garden as well. So these are some of the photos from the activities at the park and in the water. As you can see, the water was deep last year. It's going to be even deeper this year, so bring your life jackets. And I challenge you to bring a team for the canoe challenge, as you have in the past. I think you had fun. And there's the children's in the children's gold hunt. And it's amazing how we give them a pan for panning for gold. It's really a frisbee turned upside down. But they run around gathering little gold stones that I graciously painted my shoes when I was doing it. But they have a lot of fun. And just more pictures. If you're hungry, come on down for breakfast. There'll be a pancake rotary breakfast. Hamburgers, hot dogs at lunchtime as well. And that's right at the harbor. This is an indication of the people. As Vicki alluded to, the $1.3 million impact that the tour bases had. Well, if you use the same calculation and the same as to the number of people that we attract to the beach, the festival in its 9 years of operation has also produced about a $1.3 million impact for the town of Saugeen Shores. As people come from a long ways away to see our cardboard boat races. Sunday we move on to the, and this again going with this town of Saugeen Shores being a bicycle-friendly community, the War on the Shores bike race that Brett Martin is in charge of and does a great job with it. We've had participants from all over the world. We've had a team from Australia, and regularly we have teams from Quebec and Ontario, all over Ontario. So very well attended. So there's your dates. Like I said, I challenge you to put a team together for the Big Canoe Challenge. Also, if you're interested in cardboard boats, we have various categories. We actually have a category for people like myself that have grandchildren. It's called the family category. So if grandpa or grandma wants to build a cardboard boat and take the kids with them, they can be in the boat with them. So we try to make it for all members of our families. So thank you for your time and continued support. I did forget one thing, my support staff. I wouldn't be up here without the Pioneer Propeller Club and the Marine Heritage Society. So it is one organization that Vicki alluded to that we have 125 paid members, and I guarantee you we have 150 active volunteers. So it's a group that is wonderful to work with because everybody wants to help. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the committee? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments. And, the Marine Heritage Society, Marine Heritage Festival, really two pretty incredible things that have happened in our community. And I just want to congratulate both groups. And Vicki, it's like it happened yesterday, but that $125,000 loan, that was a 10-year loan and paid off in 2.5 years. And it's really an incredible group of people that you and the entire Marine Heritage Society folks, what you do for our community is really quite incredible. And you look at the economic spin-offs, the 1.3 and 1.3 with the festival, it's pretty remarkable. So if there's a group that knows how to get it done, it's Marine Heritage Society. And just want to thank you, both groups, for all the work. And I see some other people in the audience here tonight, Dave and John and others. But thank you so much for all you do. Great work.
Oh, it may have been 2 years ago, Mr. Mayor, but yeah. As we all are. I will let you in on a little secret, though. Last year, I was actually warmer in the water than the crowd was watching it because I had a wetsuit on underneath this. So I cheat. Thank you.
Very much for having us. When I heard Captain Sparrow was going to be here, I expected Johnny Depp.
I'm his rogue brother.
But you're his rogue brother, so that is just as good. Look, thanks very much for having David and I. For those of you that don't know David Abbott is the Director of Community and Indigenous Relations for Bruce Power, and we recruited David last summer. We recruited him in the summer, not the winter. That's really important because we're recruiting him from Toronto, and he was the Chief Operating Officer at the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business. We're thrilled that David's able to join us. What we'll do is jump into the presentation, and then want to make sure there's some time for you to ask David or myself any questions you may have. As you know, this has become a bit of an annual tradition where we've made a point, usually at the midpoint of each calendar year, of coming and providing council an update on what's going on at Bruce Power and some of the key things that may impact your planning and forward thinking from a municipal perspective. And I really want to start today by talking about local health care. In addition to great events in the community like the one that we just heard about and that we're also proud to sponsor annually, and we'll continue to do so, still the single biggest issue we hear about from not only local residents but our employees is access to local health care. It's when we put surveys out and we ask people, it's people not want to make sure that their loved ones and them can get access to high quality health care locally. And so, taking that feedback, we decided to embark on a 5-year campaign to look at really the entire Bruce Grey Huron region and see how could we provide some funding certainty to the healthcare needs in the area. And we were pleased in early February to advance and announce a $1.5 million contribution over a 5-year period to hospitals all over the area. And you'll see that, obviously I think our support for the Saugeen Memorial Hospital in particular here in Saugeen Shores is recognized. But really what we've tried to do is recognize that as our workforce is growing and we are attracting more and more families and businesses all throughout the region, you can see, some investments in healthcare as far north as the Bruce Peninsula Health Services Foundation had the opportunity of doing an announcement in Godrich. And really what we've tried to do is cover the whole region in as best a way as we can. We could go on for a long time about the challenges with healthcare, but one of the particular things we hear about is still a lack of funding for equipment, whether it's CT scanners, MRIs, and hospitals all throughout the area. And our expectation is that these funds will contribute to the localization of and availability of more and more of that equipment. As you know, we're right on the cusp of starting our major component replacement program. Our what we call breaker open date is scheduled for January of 2020, and that will really is the beginning of a 10 to 15 year campaign we'll undertake to go in and replace all of our reactor internals. Well, there's a lot of attention on that project and on that effort. What people often lose sight of the fact is that investment program has been underway since January 1st, 2016. And so what we've been doing is a lot of work outside of that major component replacement. And if you look across Canada, Renew Canada, which is a very respected infrastructure magazine, they rate the Bruce Power investment program as the top infrastructure project in the country, and that's really the combination of what we call major component replacement and all of our asset management and ongoing investment. Earlier this year, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce released an economic impact that looked at, not just in Grey Bruce and Huron counties, but across the province. What are the economic impacts of that? And, that's really important. I know many of you as municipal officials spend a lot of your time with organizations like AMO on an annual basis. It's really important for us as a region to talk about the economic impacts of our industry outside of the Bruce Grey and Huron region, because it's really a provincial impact, and sometimes there can be a perception that all of the jobs are just local to this area. We have components that are getting manufactured all over the province. For example, just last week, Premier Ford visited a factory run by Cameco Corporation in Port Hope that's actually making our calandria tubes, and they were celebrating one of the first shipments of calandria tubes. So you can see this economic impact all throughout Ontario, and I think that's really important to maintaining the support that we need over the long run. In terms of operational performance, we talk about projects and we talk about all these things we're doing, but at the end of the day, we're in the business of making electricity. And really, as a business, what we want to do is run our units safely and reliably. And this year, we've seen some record runs from our units. Unit 1 set a post-refurbishment run of 193 consecutive days. And the reason why that's important is if you are an investor, and I know Mike Gates here representing the Society of United Professionals, Power Workers Union, OMERS Pension Plan, TransCanada Pipelines, if you're an investor in our plant, you want to know that when you invest dollars into the refurbishment, that when the units come back, they're going to run. Because that's actually when you start returning your money. There's a perception that if you deliver an MCR on time, on budget, that's project success. No, that's just the start of it. For you to return your money, and it's all based on generating electricity. So you have to operate that unit safely and reliably for 30 to 35 years. So the ability to show that in Unit 1, after we completed a refurbishment, that it's running to that degree of reliability, it's really important in terms of attracting investors. And we see the same with Unit 5, for example, which also reached a record run of 520 consecutive days. Now, a lot of people say, how does that kind of operational performance tie in with safety? Well, if you think about it, the safest plants in North America, from a safety perspective, are also the most reliable plants. Why is that? Well, what are the two main indicators of safety? The two main indicators of safety is people are doing the right things on the plant in the way that they should be doing them, and the equipment is operating to high standards. That also leads to operational excellence. So there's a real correlation between good safety performance and good operational performance. One of the other things that we remain focused on is working with Ontario Power Generation, who has a similar project underway at Darlington, which is on time and on budget, and also trying to drive efficiencies in our business to whatever extent it's reasonable. And that's really important. We're in a market in Ontario where there are concerns about electricity prices. We are a low-cost generator. We want to remain a low-cost generator, and we are the only contract the IESO has. There's over 35,000, and that's the number, 35,000 electricity contracts in Ontario. We're the only contract that gives money back. And we delivered a check to $200 million to the province of Ontario earlier this year by announcing that. And when people complain about when we get our competitors, whether they're wind or solar or other contracts, want to talk about prices, I say, when you return $200 million, then we'll have a conversation. That's always my starting point. There's 35,000 contracts, and there's only one of them that has returned any money, and that's the Bruce Power contract, and we look forward to continuing with that. One of the areas, and within a couple of weeks, there's going to be some very exciting announcements on this front, and it still is one of those stories that I don't think is fully understood across the country, is the role of our nuclear fleet in generating medical isotopes. This year, we carried out our first harvest, what we call medical-grade cobalt. For any of you that may have loved ones or neighbors who have ever been challenged with a brain tumor, there's new treatments for brain tumors over the last decade called the gamma knife technology that is very successful at shrinking and tackling tumors. And actually that technology is being expanded onto breast cancer treatment as well. And really the philosophy of it is using gamma radiation to tackle those tumors or those cancers in a way where invasive procedures are not needed. We are going to be the world's largest provider of this medical grade cobalt. We started harvesting it this year. And over the course of the next couple of months, you're going to see some very exciting news on some new isotopes we're going to be producing as well. So, not only are we a nuclear energy company, but we're all committed to the fight against cancer. We're all committed to the fight against disease, which our industrial grade cobalt is a key part of. And so you're going to see us talk a lot more about this role, because it's not really a major financial consideration for us, but it's an opportunity for us to leverage the asset that we have to make a broader difference and have a broader impact. David's team from a community relations program, we're right into the summer bus tour program. So, last year we had over 5,000 people. I told David, let's do over 10,000 this year. We settled at 6,000. So I don't know if I was a good negotiator in that, but anyway, we're open 7 days a week. We're trying to take as many people as we can. It fills up very quickly. So if you have friends, neighbors, loved ones, come on a bus tour. Go to the festival, come for a bus tour after, make a weekend out of it, spend some money with local businesses in Saugeen Shores. But, this is a facility we're very proud of, and we want people to come and visit the area and tour the facility. And we hope it's also a tourist attraction as well. We also launched our annual post-secondary scholarship. So, we're encouraging people to ensure that they get those applications in, and we'll be presenting those in early August. I just want to wrap up and talk about economic development. I know I'm probably over the mayor's allocated time, and I want to leave some time in case there's any questions. One of the things I really commend the county on, not only of Bruce, but Grey and Huron and all the municipalities, including Saugeen Shores, is the joint work we've done on economic development. We were honored to collectively receive an award for our initiative. We have over 50 companies that have relocated or expanded to this area. And a lot of people, I think it took a lot of leadership courage to say that we were going to work together on this, because when getting these companies to relocate, it wasn't a matter of Saugeen Shores versus Kincardine or Owen Sound versus Goderich. It was actually a discussion on how do you get them from the GTA here. And what that really does is we think it's very strategic in terms of having those companies locally who are very critical to our success. We can't do all the work ourselves that's in front of us. Period, full stop. We can't. We need people to partner with that bring skills that we don't have in construction. And these are the kind of companies that are going to provide that support. What it makes a project successful? Having the right player in the right task at the right time. And that's really what this initiative has been all about. And we're really excited with it. And I'll wrap up with Ontario's Nuclear Innovation Institute. Actually, I won't go ahead on the slide there. You'll see the other slides that you can read and take as read. Really excited about this initiative. Really excited about the fact that it's going to be in Saugeen Shores. I know there was a lot of dialogue at the later part of last year about was the location that we had near the museum the right location or not. And I think it's important that we don't stay focused on that. I think it's important that we get focused on what we're going to do going forward. I think, there's a range of opinions on this. We didn't want this facility to be part of uncertainty or a disagreement, frankly. And so we're thrilled this is going to be in Saugeen Shores. We're thrilled we're going to do it. And we're just keen to move on past this. It's less important where the building is and what is going on in the building. So I really want to thank everybody on council and the municipal staff in particular that, we had that little a bump in the road, so to speak. It was a discussion. I think it was more about how do we take a step back and decide how we're moving forward. So whether people agree or not that we should have taken a step back, you're entitled to your opinion, but I think we can all agree we're going to move forward in a positive way and do this in Saugeen Shores. And that's what's most important. So this is going to be great. This is going to be an institute that people look at internationally, that companies want to invest in. And I think you're going to see some really exciting news on this throughout July. We've got a very special guest that we haven't quite signed the arrangement to get him or her to come to site late July for the kickoff. But I'm really excited about this, and I really think council and especially the CEO, CAO and mayor and deputy mayor and vice deputy mayor for their support and sort of saying, hey, look, let's find a right place in Saugeen Shores to do this. And I think we're all going to be very proud of where this ends up. So that is it. And David and I'd be thrilled to answer any questions you have or comments.
Thank you, James. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, James and David, for your presentation. It was great. I just have one question, and it's about the emergency preparedness slide that you chance to take a look at. It's actually about the something that's in the information booklet that there was a link in there.
Yes.
And I think this is probably, I don't know if this is an up-to-date version that you included there, but this is on evacuation, and it's talking about evacuating to the Davidson Center in Kincardine.
Correct.
And I when I was reading, I was figuring, well, you're talking to the people of Kincardine there, but it's not really clear. So
Yeah,
so
that is the most up-to-date version. So just to be clear, you have within the plan that is in there, Saugeen Shores would not, aside from actually it wouldn't even be in the southern part of the old Saugeen Township. That is for that immediate zone around the site, which would not include Saugeen Shores, and that would be to the Davidson Center.
Okay.
So if you look in the book, if you look in the guide, there's a map.
I did.
And if you look at where the map is, the map doesn't include Saugeen Shores, and so the Davidson Center is associated with that location.
Yeah, it's just that the text doesn't clearly say that. So it
Right.
talks about, includes Saugeen Shores residents with information about evacuating.
Right.
And so I was just thinking, the next time you do it, if you could
Sure.
just
We'll take a look at that.
say,
That's great feedback.
If you could just say something about this really applies to Kincardine residents, not so much Saugeen Shores or whatever. Just make it more clear. Thank you.
No, definitely. I'll make sure I get that page number off you, Councillor Grace, and then so I can follow up on that. That's a good comment.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And not so much a question, but just a couple of comments to say that how much everybody in Saugeen Shores and obviously in the whole region are appreciative of what Bruce Power does. There's hardly a conversation or a initiative that goes on that Bruce Power isn't a factor in and doesn't come up in that conversation, and even tourism now with your bus tours. So just on behalf of the people that we represent in the community, best of luck in the future endeavors and the MCR coming up in January, and we all look forward to it being a tremendous success.
Great. Well, thank you for your support.
Anything further? Well, thanks very much, guys, for coming in this evening. I think I've been going to lots of ribbon cuttings for new suppliers to nuclear suppliers for the major component replacement project and the rest of your operations. And every time I do those in Saugeen Shores, I always remind people that we are really becoming a hub of innovation and a center of excellence in the nuclear industry here in Saugeen Shores, and it's because of that critical mass of nuclear experts who are coming to this community. And what it's actually doing is sort of supercharging our ability to not only innovate in the nuclear sphere, but to innovate in general. And the Nuclear Innovation Institute is sort of it's called the Nuclear Innovation Institute, but it's going to be innovating on a lot of fronts. I think the Skilled Trade Secretariat, lots of different components that will have broad impact beyond just the nuclear sector and out into and including the municipal sector. So it's exciting, and you can see just tonight we won an innovation award. I think Saugeen Shores is really becoming and will become more and more known as an innovative community and a center where innovation takes place, and it's in large part because of the partnership that we have with you at Bruce Power and because of the partnership we have with Bruce County and our neighboring municipalities in Bruce County. So thank you very much for your partnership. Okay. So that brings us to the end of our delegations. We have no public meeting. So that moves us on to report of municipal officers and committees, and 7.2, general government, a staff report on the 2018 financial statements with a presentation from Michael Boatna. Does the Director of Corporate Services want to speak first, or are we going to go directly to Mr. Bolton?
We can likely go straight to the presentation from Mike Bolton.
All right, we'll invite Mr. Bolton up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. I'm here this evening to talk about the draft financial statements for the town for the year ended December 31st, 2018. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce a couple of my colleagues. First of all, Tracy Smith is a partner in our Owen Sound office, and Elizabeth Alexander is a senior manager who is working out of my office currently. And the reason that they're here is I'm retiring at the end of this week, and someone else will be here next year doing this presentation. So I thought it was important that Tracy be here to say hello at least.
Thanks, Michael, and unfortunately we are sad to see Michael go. As Michael said, I'm a partner in the Owen Sound office, so I've been a partner for 11 years, and I have over 30 years of municipal experience, so I'm not quite sure why I don't get to retire too, but so I'll be taking on the role of the engagement partner with Michael, but I want to assure you that you still have the same audit team that you've always had out of the Port Elgin office, and so since we didn't want to double up this year with both Michael and I'm just going to turn it right over to Michael for the presentation.
Very good. Linda, which presentation did you have up there first? No. Why don't we start with the audit final report to the members of council? The draft financials, slide 11. So part of our responsibilities of auditors is a communication with council to tell you about the audit, where we are with the audit, the results of our audit, and then I usually run through some of the financial results as well to give you some of the highlights that you should be aware of. So the status of the audit as of today, we're finished with our field work. The file has been reviewed. So what you have tonight is a draft, and we can present or give finals to staff and to council once it's approved by council. And then there's some follow-up work that we do. We communicate with your lawyer to make sure there's no outstanding contingencies that should be disclosed, and that'll take a week or two. So I imagine sometime in the middle of July we'll be able to deliver finals. One of the things that we talk about generally is materiality. So we don't look at every single transaction all during the year for the municipality. That would be too costly and too time consuming. So we as auditors, we calculate something called materiality, and it's a percentage, 2% of your own revenue. And in this case, it's about $600,000. So if we found an error of more than $600,000, we would ask staff to correct that error before the financial statements were completed. And when we're designing our tests, we're looking at finding errors at that level. We didn't find errors anywhere near that level, so it's not that there are a significant amount of unadjusted errors, and I'll talk about that when we get later on the presentation. But so when we design our work, that's the level of error that we're looking for when we design our tests. And that 2% of revenue is an industry standard that we use across all public sector entities. One of the other tenets of an audit is independence. So auditors have to be independent from their clients. In a municipal setting, that's relatively easy. Neither I nor my staff sit on any boards that are associated with municipality, so I can confirm that we are independent of the town in doing our work. And I guess we can go right to the draft financial statements, which are up on the screen and were circulated earlier. And I think before I get into the numbers, I'd like to speak to the audit report itself. And so on page number 2, it's entitled The Independent Auditor's Report, and it's our report to the members of council and the ratepayers of the corporation of the town of Saugeen Shores about our audit. And on page 2, it starts with a qualified opinion. So for the last couple of years, I've stood here and said, you don't have a clean audit report. It's qualified because the accounting for your capital assets, the buildings, the roads, the sewers, the vehicles, etc., there's not enough information in your accounting records that we as auditors can give a clean report that those numbers are correct. I don't think there's anything missing. There's nothing gone astray. It's just the accounting that's done isn't up to date. There could be assets, mainly line items like sewer and water and roads, that maybe are not accounted for correctly. They were put in service in the wrong year in our accounting system, or may not be complete. So this is the same report as we've had other years. It's no different than other years. So as I said, I don't think there's anything missing. It's just not accounted for correctly in the financial statements. We provide an opinion. We don't give a guarantee. I mentioned earlier that we don't look at every single transaction. So we give an opinion based on our work as to whether these financial statements are in accordance with the correct accounting principles. And the accounting principles that are used here are the same ones that are used in all government organizations from Canada right down to lower tier municipalities. And so you do amortization. We're going to talk about that. You account for capital assets. We'll talk about that. You do something called reserves. We're going to talk about that a little bit before we're done. And in a for-profit business, you wouldn't have reserves, but in municipalities and government organizations, you do. So the accounting principles you use are different from business accounting principles. Also in the audit report, we talk about management's responsibilities. So council has engaged management to actually do the accounting. They look after the books and the records, do the deposits, write the checks, and they are responsible for these financial statements. Even though we actually draft them, it's ultimately management that's responsible for the preparation and presentation of these financial statements. So other than the one quirk that I talked about with capital assets, we didn't have any other trouble in completing our audit. And I'd like to thank your staff, Treasury, and we tend to pester the staff throughout the municipality about accounting. So I'd like to thank your staff. They were certainly more than accommodating to my staff in getting the work done, and that's why we're able to be here in June instead of some years it has been later than this. So I'm not going to go through every line of the financial statement, but I'm going to talk about the numbers a little bit. So I'm going to start on page number 5, which is a consolidated statement of financial position. So this is a balance sheet in a for-profit organization. Your cash amount in your checking account at the end of December was about $12,000. A year ago was about $7,000. So you had more cash a year ago than you did, in 2018 than you did in 2017. There are a few significant estimates that are done in the municipality. Your landfill, as an example, is a long-term liability. It gets paid over many years, so that's a significant estimate. You engage engineers to help you with that. And also, you've made promises to your employees in terms of paying for their health and dental premiums after they've retired, so that's a significant estimate to figure out what's that going to cost in the long run. So that's a significant estimate. And then on page number 6, which I believe is the one, are you clicking? Can you go back one, Linda? Yes, so the statement of operations, this is a comparison of your 2018 budget, which is the left-hand column, with the actual results for 2018, which is in the middle, as compared to the 2017, which is the right-hand column. You can see that your total budgeted revenue for the year was just over $32 million. The actual revenue collected was just over $34 million. So you collected more revenue in 2018 than budget and more than 2017. Your expenses, you budgeted $2,782,000 in expenses, and actually spent was $29,000. But as part of your budgeting, you don't budget for amortization. So in the budget column, amortization is not included as an expense in your budget, but it is included in the middle column in the 2018 actual. So we can't really compare accurately to your budget, but we can compare to the prior year because it does include amortization. So actually spent in 2017 was $28.7 million. Actually spent in 2018 was $29.4. So your total expenses are up about $700,000. And your total revenue is up about $4 million. So where last year you had a annual surplus of $1.658 million, this year's annual surplus is $4.601. So certainly better financial position this year than last year. Total accumulated surplus at the end of the year was $169 million, and last year was $165. So you have $4 million more in surplus this year than you did a year ago. And I think I'm going to skip a whole bunch of pages, but I believe a relevant one is on page number 20. And the page numbers, I believe, are in the bottom right-hand corner. It's note number 8, which is entitled Accumulated Surplus. That one there, Linda, would be great. Thank you. So I mentioned that your accumulated surplus was $169 million, and a year ago was 165. So this gives a breakdown of where is that surplus. It wasn't money in the bank at the end of the year. You didn't have 169 million in the bank. So this is a breakdown of where that surplus is. So of that 169 million, 158 million is in your tangible capital assets. So back in 2009, there was a change in your accounting policies, and it was required that you actually do an inventory of your roads and sewer and water and vehicles and buildings, and those are being depreciated over time, and anything new that you bought after 2009 is also added to that number. So that represents the cost of those assets less the accumulated amortization since those were put into service. So at 169 million, 158 million is in your capital assets, and your reserves and your reserve funds are $22 million. A year ago, that number was 19 million. So you've added about $3 million to your reserves over what it was a year ago. So they're certainly in good position for going forward. And on the next page, we have note number 9. So I generally get asked, what are our reserves and where are they? So the reserves that the municipality has set aside, capital reserves are 19 million, so it makes up the greatest part of that $22 million, and it's increased just short of $3 million over what it was last year. So all your increase in reserves is generally for capital purposes. So I believe that's all I wanted to comment on the financial statement. Linda, there's another one that's the year-end report for Saugeen Shores. And this is one that we started doing 3 or 4 years ago and tends to generate the most comments and seems to be of the most interest. So while the auditors really like the numbers in the financial statement, it seems council like this other report. So I'll maybe just wait till it comes up on the screen because it does have some interesting summaries. On page number 3, that one there. It's kind of hard to read on the screen, but I believe it was distributed to council as part of what you have. So page number 3 is just a summary of that statement of financial position that I talked about before, and it's a 5-year comparison. So it's easier to track the progress of the municipality over the last 5 years from 2014 to 2018. The ones that I'd like to draw to your attention, so something that we look at is your financial assets, which is your cash and your investments and your taxes receivable and loan receivable. So the total of your short-term assets in 2014 was $25 million. As we look at that for 2018, it was $33 million. So you have $8 million more in liquid assets than you did 5 years ago. And your liabilities, which is the second block of them there, if you add all those up, your total liabilities in 2014 were $20 million. Your total liabilities now are $23 million. So current assets have gone up 8, and your liabilities have gone up 3. So you're $5 million further ahead at this point than you were 5 years ago. So certainly the municipality is headed in the right direction. If we could skip a couple pages and go to page number 6. Yes, that one there. This one generates some questions generally. So this isn't an accounting measure. It's more just for information as to the trend as opposed to the absolute numbers. So what this is trying to do is it's trying to measure how old your assets are. So if you only had one asset, if you only had a truck that was going to last 5 years, this would have looked in 2014 after 1 year of use, it would have been 80%, 2 years use 60%, then 40, then 20, and after 5 years that number up there would be 0. So because you have a mix of roads which last 50 years and sewer and water which last 80 years and vehicles which last 5 years, it's kind of hard to measure this with any degree of accuracy, but I think the trend is your assets are generally getting older, and they're not being replaced as quickly as what the old ones are being depreciated. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, it's just a measurement, it's just a calculation. But in 2014, your assets were 63% used up in accounting terms. And at the end of 2018, they're 58% used up. Not saying they're going to fall down to more. I'm not saying they need to be replaced to more. It's just the trend is your assets are getting older. And there's one on page 8, which is taxation. And so this one is a little skewed because we only have census numbers we don't have census numbers every year. So you can see that the municipal population number for 2017 and 2018 is the same, and I know that's not the case, but we don't have any up-to-date numbers on what the population is, so we have to use what last year's numbers were. And the net municipal levy per capita in 2014 was $825. You raised in taxation from each resident $825. In 2018, that was $1,066. So you're raising over $200 more per capita than you were 5 years ago. But again, I know the number of 14,042 for 2018 isn't right, but I don't know what the right number is to do the actual division. And on the next page, I'm not going to dwell on it in detail, but the total revenue by source, it's kind of interesting that in 2014, you raised 40% of your revenue by taxation, and now it's 42%. So not a lot of change in the percentage of taxation, but your grants have gone from 10% down to 6%, and your other income's gone from 14% to 16%. So you're raising money not through grants as much as through other income now. I don't think I was going to talk about the other pages in there. They were more for your information to kind of have a visual representation of what's gone on in the municipality for the last 5 years. But, Mr. Mayor, I'd be glad to entertain questions if there are any.
Thank you, Michael. I'll ask the committee or questions from members of the committee. Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and once again through you. Thank you, Michael, for the presentation. Obviously, a great deal of information here for us to try and absorb, and it's difficult to get certainly the untrained mind like myself. And before I forget, congratulations on your retirement coming up. You did mention that the asset value page usually generates questions, and certainly that's where my question is going to be. It's so you said that our assets are getting older and they're depreciating at a rate that is slower than the way that we're adding assets. Not that it's a big concern, but it's a trend. So when we add an asset, so this year, later this summer, hopefully before the snow flies, we're going to be finishing the new police station, which is a significant capital asset. Will then next year, when your successor stands before us, will they be giving us another story saying, oh, you've added a $7 million or $8 million asset, so that number now is going to be shifting in the other direction? Is that the way that works?
In theory, yes. So you've got one example of the police station. On an annual basis, your amortization is it's almost $7 million. So writing off the roads and the vehicles and the building, generally your depreciation or amortization every year is about $7 million. So if you add a $7 million asset and depreciate everything else by $7 million, it's neutral.
Break even.
You're going to break even. You'll be at 58% again next year.
Okay.
If you add $20 million of assets in a year and only take $7 million of amortization, that number would go from 58 to 59 or something.
So it's a good thing we're doing more than just building a police station.
Well, again, I'm not making a comment of whether it's good or bad. It's just a trend.
Okay. That's good for now. Thank you.
Further questions from members of the committee? Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Michael. And retirement. Gee, that's quite an announcement tonight. Congratulations. Yeah. On page 4 of 13, and that is in the annual statement, I guess it is, Michael. We've got here, one of the charts I just wonder if you could explain to me, maybe if you can bring it up, perhaps on page 8. It's, you talk about cash flow by activity operating $7 million in 2014, operating costs and 15 million in 2018. I don't quite understand that chart. Michael, if you explain to me, and where we go from 7 million to 15 million over the 4-year period.
Is that the one?
It's on page 4 of 13, or page 70 of the council report.
That's the one there?
Can you explain that chart to me, that cash flow activity, where we're looking at 7 million roughly in 2014 and 15 million in 2018? Let me.
So this is a reflection of the change in your cash balance. So I'd mentioned before that you had more in current assets than you had a year earlier. So in 2014, let's just focus on that column for a moment. So in 2014, you had cash at the beginning of the year of, oh, no, sorry, let's do 2015 because the number's there. So 2014, you had 11,550,000 of cash. At the end of 2015, you had 10,612,000. So your cash went down by $938,000. So in that year, you spent more on buying capital assets, paying down debt, than you brought in from operations.
So it must have been a very large.
Well, that year you added $6.5 million of capital assets. You paid down $923,000 of debt, long-term debt that you had incurred before, but you only generated $6 million from operations. So your taxation, your grants, etc., you only brought in $6 million, and you paid out almost $7 million of those capital kinds of things. So in 2018, if we go to 2018 in that column, so at the beginning of 2018 or closing of 2017, you had $14.598 million. At the end of 2018, you had $19.377. So you had $4 million more in cash than you did at the end of 17. And the sources of that was you brought in $14.8 million from operations, grants, taxation, paying your expenses. You purchased $9.4 million of capital assets, and you paid $968,000 on your long-term debt. So you had $4 million more. So I don't have the history of what happened in 14 and 15, but 18 you certainly brought in more than what you spent.
Okay. I don't know what page it's on, and I meant to write it down here today when I was reviewing this again, but the tax-funded debt per resident. I'm sorry I don't have the page, unfortunately, Michael, but if you can comment, just maybe you can't comment without looking at the page, and I can't bring it up if I don't know where it is. Well, I just want to talk about tax-funded debt per resident, and how does our debt per resident stack up versus other communities around the province? You can answer that question now, but I guess the question is, how are we doing? And I'm sorry I don't have the page.
I'm looking for it as well in the report. Page 8. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, that's the taxation per capita?
Well, my question really is around the tax-funded debt per resident.
Tax-funded
But
debt.
I think that's per capita. I think that's what maybe a different. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay,
I should have.
I'll take that a question and I'll maybe report back because I don't think I have the answer.
I wouldn't mind knowing the answer to that question because I think it'd be good to know how we're stacking up locally versus provincially with other municipalities. It's the tax-funded debt per resident, and how does our debt per resident compare provincially? That was the question I wanted to know.
As a comparison?
Okay. We're doing fine. Under page 17, the Port Elgin landfill site care cost of $53,838, and of course the Port Elgin landfill site's been closed for a number of years, but it's an annual operating cost to maintain that Port Elgin landfill site, the closing now that it's closed. Can someone explain what that cost is? $53,838 per year on page 17. You talk about. I don't know. Is long-term debt? Is it Something that's
So-
over a 30-year period that we're just still paying off? When does it end? That was the question.
Right, okay. So it's note number 5, which talks about the landfill. So you have 2 landfills. You have the Port Elgin landfill, which is closed. So there's annual monitoring costs required. I don't think, it does not say here how much longer those go on.
Monitoring is obviously an annual cost that maybe does not end?
It does at some point, yes.
It does at some point?
Yep. Does it?
If the note in your in the financial statements, note number 5, says that we're talking about the landfill site closure and post-closure care liability, I assume?
Yep.
And it says that it's expected to continue for an additional 20 years, and the total future closure and post-closure care costs are estimated to be $488,640.
Port Elgin, is that for
That would be combined.
That's for the
that would be combined, I believe.
Port
Oh,
and
is that
South?
combined?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
and I'd have to go back and look. I believe it's
That's
20 years after closure that you have to continue to monitor, et cetera.
Okay.
Yes?
That
I
number
got a
just-
nod back here from someone who would know.
The number just jumped out at me that it's been closed for a number of years. And yet
Yeah,
there's
so I don't know how
50.
much longer that is till the end of the 20 years.
Gotcha.
So what we do, the $53,000 is the remaining liability. So that's not the annual cost. That's what's left, what we've estimated, or your engineer, someone has estimated what's left to be paid till the end of the monitoring
Gotcha.
period.
Understood.
Mike?
Well, I just, what's pertinent and what's... That's good, thank you.
Further questions from members of the committee? Councillor Schreider.
Thank you. Through you, and maybe just a follow-up through Vice Deputy Mayor's question as well, back to page 4 with the cash flow question. Would it be fair to say that if, when you're looking at the operating cash flow in and then capital transactions, if you do not complete all of your capital work in 2018, those funds then aren't spent and they would be carried over to 2019, so that would skew perhaps that calculation a bit. So if we didn't complete $3 million of capital work in 2018, that those funds are carried forward to 2019.
That's correct. So the police building, for example, it would count as work under construction if it would have been whatever was completed at the end of December. But if you complete that in 2019, in your example, that would be correct, right? If there's projects you don't get to and you do them in the next year, we wouldn't count them when you plan to do them. We would count them when you did them. That's correct, yeah.
Further, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Treasurer CEO. And this relates to the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. This year it was $1,271,000. Any word on when we will hear in 2019 with the partnership funding? I thought we received a piece of correspondence lately, but I can't recall. When do we typically hear?
Not sure. I'd have to check that.
You'll recall that the 2019 OMPF announcement was quite late. This year, the government was reconsidering OMPF and then announced, and we got, I think, a slight increase, actually, if I recall correctly, in OMPF for 2019. The government, though, has been clear that they are continuing to assess OMPF for 2020, and I think Council would be wise not to anticipate the same continued level of funding based on what we've heard from the government. Anything further? Councillor Grace.
Mr. Mayor, Michael, I have a question that goes back to page 6 in the original document. And I think you answered this, but I'm not exactly sure. I had a question written down about talking about the expenses and the fact that there's a significant difference between the budgeted amount for our transportation and environmental services as opposed to what the actual amount is for both 2018 and 17. So there's like almost a $3 million difference for transportation services. And close to 3 million difference for environmental services. Can you see where?
Yeah. Yes. So on page 6,
you said that one thing that makes a big difference is the fact that amortization is not included in the budget figures, but it's included in the actual. But so, could you explain how that works, please?
Yes. Yep. So in your budgeting process, you don't budget for amortization because when you're raising taxes, amortization is not a cash expense that you need to raise money for. So your budget you set on a cash basis to determine how much to collect. But as part of the accounting principles, we have to include amortization in the actual. So when I was preparing, I did look. So under transportation services, the budget is, call it $4 million, is short of $4 million. Actually spent was just short of $7 million for a $3 million excess expenditure, if you like. But your amortization in the transportation services department is $2.6 million. So that $3 million difference is really only $400,000. I also looked at environmental services. So your budget is $5.5 million. Actually spent is $8.3 million. But the amortization for 2018 was $3 million, which is the full amount of the difference between budget and actual. So if amortization had been budgeted, you would have been almost bang on in both those categories.
Great, thank
you. Further questions from the committee? Thank you very much, Michael, for your work. I think, and you said it a number of times in there, that the municipality is heading in the right direction in a lot of cases, and I think that that's true. And what we've seen, and we've reported out quite a few times now, is that Saugeen Shores is a low tax community. So you show in your report that our taxation per capita has been increasing, but that's been happening in the context, obviously, of increases across the province, and that we're still below average in 2018 in terms of our total municipal taxation situation. And so I think what folks are seeing there is and you see the growth in our reserves. We're continuing to sort of tax a little bit more incrementally, taking a small amount more so that we can fund the growth that we're experiencing as a community. The community is growing very quickly, and we have to prepare as a council, as a municipality, for that growth and fund the infrastructure, recreation, hard services that we need to meet that growth. And so I think what this represents is a very balanced approach, the balanced approach that the municipality has been taking for a very long time, frankly, toward doing that and achieving it. So thank you for your report, and thank you for all your years of service to the town of Saugeen Shores. What number would this be for the number of financial statements you've presented to the town of Saugeen Shores?
There was a predecessor of mine, Peter Thor, was here for a number of years when I was a new partner in Port Elgin. So I don't know. It's certainly been since amalgamation. I've been standing up and doing this. I had a presentation at Saugeen Golf Club, and I know I presented that one for 30 years.
Yeah, you've been here as long as I have been, which is getting on to be a few years now. So, but thank you very much for your service, and good luck in your retirement, and all the best from the town of Saugeen Shores.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, that moves us then on to item 2, I guess, staff report on the 2018 year-end financial report and the Director of Corporate Services.
So, there is a recommendation that the council accepts the 2018 annual audited financial statements as presented by Michael Bolton of BDO. I don't think I need to add a whole lot more than Mike's pretty much gone over the financial statements. If there are any other questions that myself or my staff can answer, I would like to shout out to my staff and all the staff of the town, because this really is a bit of a team effort to pull the financial statements together. So,
yes, thank you very much, both to yourself and to Dan and to your entire team in the corporate services and treasury department. You've done some really outstanding work that's been reflected in the presentation from Mr. Bolton today, and we appreciate that very much. I do have a recommendation. I'll read it, and we can take any questions or comments from the committee. It's recommended that Council accepts the 2018 annual audited financial statements as presented by Michael Bolton of BDO. Questions or comments from the committee? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I'm looking at Appendix A, the unfunded projects. So the Port Elgin splash pad is still owing $20,000, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And we're looking to pay that through pledge donations? Are there still donations coming in?
Yes, we have, there's 13,375 pledged donations for 2019 and a further 8,125 in 2020. So that gives us about 21,500 in pledged donations. So we should just hopefully squeak over.
That's good. Could you explain to me what the columbariums are?
So those are the plots within the cemetery buildings. So as the plots are purchased, we will apply that cost to the capital cost of the columbarium.
Thank you very much. Excellent job, too, by the way.
Thank you.
Anything further from members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Okay, so that moves us now on to... Now I'm on subject 2. See, these two look almost exactly the same, which is why I'm confused.
They're very, which report should come first, the chicken or the egg? That's kind of the...
Sorry about that. So
right.
Now we're on to the staff report for the 2018 year-end financial report. And how about we turn it over to the treasurer, Daniel Wager, for the presentation.
I'll take this one.
Okay.
Yeah,
I really tried to put him on the spot there, Sue, as you took it. Sue,
Dan's still,
the director.
He wants to observe yet another year. So Dan prepared this report for you tonight. So this report will outline the ins and out of the reserves and reserve funds, which you'll see in the Appendix A, which he has provided. And that will just show you sort of where we started, where we ended up with our reserve balances. And then in Appendix B is the statement of the development charges report. So you'll notice that when Mike was speaking, he referenced a lot of increase in our operating fund. So I just want to make sure that a big chunk of the increase in our cash and our revenues relates to our development charges increase in the year. So that revenue is sort of what's a big chunk of the increase in the revenues and the cash flow that we've experienced over the last year. I just wanted to highlight that a bit. Other than that, it's somewhat self-explanatory. We did transfer the surplus we have of $46,975 and change per our current reserve policy into our tax stabilization fund. So.
Okay, I'll read the recommendation, then we can take questions or comments. It's recommended that Council authorizes the transfers to, from reserves and reserve funds as outlined in the attached tables for the 2018 year end. Questions or comments from members of the committee? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to follow up with a comment. I wanted to pass on a thank you. A lot of work goes into this, obviously, not just this report, but the one before, certainly. And to Daniel and Sue, I just, I send a fair amount of emails and ask a fair amount of questions, and I just wanted to thank you both for getting back so quickly. And they're always detailed and accurate and prompt, and I really do appreciate that. So thank you, and great work.
And we appreciate the questions ahead of time so we can prepare, because that sometimes for us presenting, that is sort of the fear of the unknown. What are they going to ask? What should we bring? So anything you can ask ahead of time we're greatly open to have. So.
Sure. Any further questions or comments from committee members? And all in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you. That moves us then on to item 3, staff report on the Fanshawe College facility rental, and we'll turn it over to the Manager of Strategic Initiatives.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a staff report this evening regarding Fanshawe College. So I'm seeking support from Council to advance a facility rental agreement with Fanshawe College. Fanshawe was in last month and spoke to Council about bringing their Business Entrepreneurship Management Diploma program into Southampton. We're looking for permission to waive the fee for the first year. This will help Fanshawe build some capacity in our community. The Business Entrepreneurship Program is an accelerated diploma program, and it will be live streamed. And right now we're looking at the Southampton Fire Hall classroom space, as it is an underutilized space. Having said that, in the report I do note that The rental agreement will identify that the primary use of this building is the fire hall, so Fanshawe understands they may be interrupted in the space. I do have support from the Director of Protective Services, Fire Chief Phil Eagleson, and certainly this moving this forward with Fanshawe College aligns with our economic development strategic plan as well as our corporate strategic plan.
Thank you. I have a recommendation. Then we can take any questions or comments. It's recommended that Council authorize staff to enter into a facility rental agreement with Fanshawe College for the regular use of classroom space in the Southampton Fire Hall and that the facility rental fee be waived. Questions or comments from the committee? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I'll be supporting this motion. This is a fantastic opportunity for Saugeen Shores. We're bringing in a fantastic educational business that will be coming in, providing opportunities for our students, our postgraduates who need that opportunity to not go away to school, but to be here and achieve the diploma degree, the training that they'll need that'll move them on to a better job, which will help improve their lifestyles. And this is, as I said, is just the first of many that hopefully we can get going in conjunction when you look at what we're going to be doing with the Nuclear Innovation Institute. It's making Saugeen Shores the true hub of this area for innovation and learning.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, it's just an excellent opportunity, and we're really excited to see Fanshawe coming to our community. So, with that, I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. So that moves us on to item 4, staff report on PMH Insights planning software and the CAO.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As you heard earlier, our staff are very innovative. We do lots of great work on a daily basis. We deliver on projects, we achieve goals, we maintain our facilities in the municipality. We prepare for and react to emergencies, but there's always room for improvement. One of the areas that we've self-identified as not being as well as we would like is in the reporting of our efforts to council and to the community on a regular basis, the status of the work that we were doing. We also don't, despite our best efforts, plan as well as we would like to. It's something we've identified internally because we don't have an integrated, coordinated planning tool. And this is, I'm referring to small P planning, not land use planning, and we want to be more effective and more efficient in this area. Council will remember that the province granted us about $630,000 specifically for the municipality to become more efficient and more effective. We're recommending that with council support we purchase this municipal specific planning and reporting tool. The initial cost would be funded from the grant and thus doesn't impact our operating budget, and then in 2020 we would put the annual operating cost into the budget. You'll see from the report there's a one-time cost of about $30,000 and then the annual fee is about $11,000, $12,000, so it's not a hugely significant amount of money on a going forward basis, and it is something that I certainly heard from members of council and from my team that we want to do better in this, and we think this is a good solution.
Thank you. I'll read the recommendation. We can take questions or comments after that. It's recommended that Council pass a bylaw to authorize an agreement with PMH Insights for the supply and startup of the Cascades software program at a cost of $41,750 plus HST. Questions or comments from the members of the committee? Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I've certainly expressed in the past a desire to see sort of key performance indicators, and I'm really looking forward to what this software can bring. You've mentioned a one-time startup fee of $30,000 and an annual fee after that. Has there been any consideration given to the integration or data integration or interfaces that may be built with other software that exists? Is that included in the $30,000?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The way that this software program works is it takes information from our current systems and integrates it in. So there are no impacts on our current systems. They take standardized reporting formats. So from our financial reporting, we've talked to them as well about going forward when we get a plan, when we hire consultants, do a plan, an economic development strategy. How does that get integrated? So they've given us some suggestions on how to ensure that that happens. Part of it will be our expectations going forward when we're hiring people to do plans or when we develop plans. part of that reporting is in a format that is easily integrated. So the one time is to go backwards in time and take all of our plans and upload it. Going forward will be responsible.
Further questions or comments from committee members? This is an excellent initiative and one that I think is certainly in line with the intention of that funding from the province and gets us moving along that track toward greater efficiency. So with that, I'll ask all in favor. It's carried. All right, so that moves us on to 7.3, infrastructure and development, and we have one staff report there, and it's on SSOPA 33, 19.48, and Z21, 19.48, O'Dwyer. And Tessa, our planner, has the report. Tessa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me at council tonight. So I'll keep this brief. This is a file that went forward at the Planning Advisory Committee back in May. So it really hasn't changed since then. So today I'm really just here to provide a formal recommendation on the file. So just to provide a little bit of a background, this is a property in Southampton along Division Street, basically that goes between North and South Rankin Streets. And it's currently entirely zoned highway commercial, but there's a long-established residential use on the property. So the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment are to rezone those residential portions of the land to actually recognize that land to a residential designation and residential zoning, and keep those areas of the property that are along the highway corridor as highway commercial. And I've provided the policy details in the report, but basically both lots remain bigger than they would need to be for the proposed uses. So for the highway commercial, it's 3 times the size of what we would usually expect in a highway commercial use, and for the residential, it's 6 times the size. So these are both still large lots with further potential for development. And I do believe that this would represent a good use of the lands. It retains the residential character along South Rankin Street that's established, and recognizes that character along the rest of the street without impacting the commercial viability of the lot. So my recommendation today is that Council adopt the official plan amendment and forward the necessary bylaw to County Council for approval, and that the zoning bylaw be approved and sent to Saugeen Shores Council for adoption. I would just note that under the Planning Act, a zoning bylaw cannot be adopted before it is in line with an official plan, and so we will have to wait on formalizing the official plan or the zoning bylaw until the official plan amendment has been approved at county. So I'm happy to take any questions on the file if there are any.
Thank you, Tessa. I'll read the recommendation, and then we can take any questions or comments. It's recommended that the official plan amendment, SSOPA 33, 19.48, for the property described as part lots 1 to 3, South North Rankin Street and North South Rankin Street, Town of Saugeen Shores, geographic Town of Southampton, be adopted, and the necessary bylaw be forwarded to County Council for approval. The zoning bylaw amendment, Z21, 19.48, for that same property be approved, and the necessary bylaw be forwarded to Council for adoption. That final adoption and the associated zoning bylaw amendment, Z21, 19.48, be deferred until County Council has made a decision on the OPA. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Tessa. So that moves us on to 7.4, Community Services, Parks and Recreation. 3 staff reports there. The first one is a staff report on the Southampton Curling Club lease, and the Director of Community Services.
Thank you. This is certainly a long-occurring lease agreement with the Town of Saugeen Shores with the Curling Club in the Annex in Southampton. We're presenting tonight a 5-year lease agreement to present to Council. Really, we've only cleaned up some wording, and we have changed the ice removal date to accommodate the Rotary Home Show, which is held in the spring.
Thank you. I'll read the recommendation, then we can take any questions. That Council pass a bylaw to authorize the lease agreement with the Southampton Curling Club for the Southampton Coliseum and Annex 1. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jane, I apologize for not sending you this question earlier, but I just had a question in the section where it was talking about different types of equipment that were owned by the town and which was club specific and which was shared and which was town specific. So I just wanted to clear up a question about the brine pump, which I believe was identified as being club specific. Is that owned by the town or is it owned by the club?
The brine pump's owned by the town.
Okay. And so why is it that the club has, am I right in saying, in understanding that the club is responsible for 100% of the brine pump costs?
It would depend on what the circumstances were. If it's due to maintenance for the ongoing operations of their facility, then that could be something that they would be 100% responsible for. In essence, when there are issues such as that, we typically negotiate with the club. Typically, they are on our side, and they benefit from the reaps of our maintenance program on our equipment.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves us then on to the second report, staff report, canteen lease agreement, Montgomery. The director.
Thank you. The Montgomerys are seeking a 1-year agreement to provide canteen services at the Plex only. The previous agreement did include the Southampton Coliseum. However, they've indicated it's not viable for those operations except for the 2 tournaments that are hosted there annually. A 1-year agreement will enable the Montgomerys an opportunity to address their services and comments received from key stakeholders and provide them an opportunity to increase businesses and customer service.
Thank you. And we have a recommendation. I'll read it, then we can take any questions or comments. The council pass a bylaw to authorize the lease agreement between the town of Saugeen Shores and Tom and Nadine Montgomery for the concession operations at the Saugeen Shores Community Complex. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. First, if I may say, as a proud supporter of small business in this community, I unfortunately cannot support this recommendation. If I could start by saying that for many visitors, the Plex is just a window into our community, as many potential tourists or visitors to our community attend here for regular events. As someone who personally spends several hours a week in the Plex and regularly visits arenas around Ontario, I do not feel that the proposed recommendation meets the desires of our community members, many of whom have expressed to me that they would like to see a wider variety of food and beverages available and more availability, or rather the canteen be open more regularly. The proposal to decrease the service available by closing the Coliseum and similarly decreasing the fees seems unreasonable and does not appear to align with the wishes of the community. My first question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director would be, in the initial 5 years of this lease, could you confirm whether you or your team have received any complaints similar to those that I've heard? And then secondly, if you could also address whether you considered any penalties or disincentives to be written into the contract to ensure that the new regular hours are enforced in some capacity. Was that consideration given? Thank you.
So your first question in regards to complaints, yeah, we've certainly, I have one written complaint now on my computer, and vice versa. I've had complaints from Montgomery's as well in regards to some of the key stakeholders. Your second question in regards to penalties, no, there's no penalties acknowledged within the agreement.
Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report. With the closing of the canteen facility in the Southampton Coliseum, to me that seems like we're going to be leaving a gap there for patrons of that facility. Was there any consideration to opening up the availability of that canteen facility for an RFP for other interested parties, or perhaps even community groups to go in there and use that as an opportunity to raise funds?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, the canteen in Southampton has very limited resources to run a successful canteen, hence the reason why the Montgomerys have asked that they no longer provide the services there. It's very small and certainly needs a tremendous amount of updating. Staff can certainly give some consideration to what to fill the gap, we'll say, for lack of a better word, for services that could be provided there.
It just seems to me that even if you're not going to offer a full food service, that at least having hot chocolate and coffee and maybe popcorn and even confectionery items might be something that people who are in the arena for long periods of time, and I'm thinking about the parents of kids who are skating. And I'm thinking also about like groups like Rotary Lions, other minor hockey might be able to pull on their volunteers to make coffee, and that could be an effective fundraising opportunity. I'd really appreciate if that consideration could be made.
Yeah, absolutely.
Further questions or comments from committee members? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I agree with Councillor Mayette. Having spent a lot of time in the arenas in our community and around the area, the Southampton Coliseum stand was very rarely ever open. The Port Elgin stand was kind of hit and miss. I know that they were talking about having some designation of not bringing in known coffee or other foodstuffs. I know it's very tough as a business operator to make money when people bring stuff in, but because of the hit and miss with the canteen being open, people never knew if they were going to be able to get a coffee or not. We had two very successful teams, both going to All-Ontario semifinals and one to All-Ontario finals, and on the 4 weekends that those teams were playing and the Plex was packed, the canteen itself was not open. So I cannot support reducing their fees. We don't reduce fees for people. And I don't know whether, have they gone through every year? Is it a yearly renewal lease, Jane, or is it based on a couple years?
The previous ones were based on every 3 years. This one they've asked for 1 year to see if they can have an opportunity to increase sales.
I'd like to see that go back to staff when we look at one, as Councilor Mayette said, re-tender out the Southampton Coliseum because there is an opportunity there. As a parent, when minor hockey had this, and this was a few years ago, it was a moneymaker in Southampton if it's done the right way. Two, that we leave the fees as is, but we have to make sure that the hours that they state that they're going to be there, that they're actually open. That way they'll get a true representation of what's going to happen. Thursdays are a bad day because there's not really any games. It's figure skating and public rentals, so that's good, but they may reduce the odd hour on Saturdays and Sundays because it is rentals and practices and public time, but the hours, if they maintain those, I believe they'll get a true representation.
The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jane, I'm just wondering, this agreement, it's 5 years expiring, and back then, it was obviously sent out for a request for proposal or tender or some form of request. How many requests did we receive at that time?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick little history lesson here. It was just a step back even a year before that. Minor hockey had the operations. They managed the operations and truly had difficulty with garnering enough volunteer support to work at the canteens. They in turn turned it back to the community, and the town did an RFP, and we received, I believe it was 2 bids at that time.
Mr. Mayor, I understand what Councillor Smith's saying too. Is that when you come into, I attended a little it was this 8 and under girls softball team. I'm helping coach my son this year. We went to the little town of Holland Center this past week, and there was still 40 or 50 people there. Actually, it was a bigger crowd to see some of the men's and ladies games in town, but the canteen was open. It was great. And after the game, all the kids kind of filtered in there, and they got their ice cream and their pop and their popcorn and whatever they wanted to buy. And it was a service. It was a service, is what it was. And I've been to 4, 5, 6 ball hockey games for my grandson here at the Plex, Jane, and all 6 times the canteen wasn't open. And I just think that this is not about bashing the operator. I'm not trying to. I'm just saying. It's a service, and I think when people come into a facility, into a town, like we patronized the little town of Holland Center this past week, it's a service, and I think it's important that that the hours of operation are hours that people know when they come into a facility they're able to get a cup of coffee or pop or popcorn or whatever. I would probably like to see this deferred. Mr. Mayor, I don't know whether that's a form of motion or whether we turn down the recommendation or just defer. I guess motion to defer is probably what I'd like to see happen, and I think we should take another look. I mean, there are municipalities, I'm not maybe suggesting we do this, although it's a thought. There are some municipalities in the province that actually run, not a lot, but there are some out there that actually run the canteen service as a service, because we want to make sure that that window is open for people coming into town and our local residents. So I think we need to defer and take another look at this.
So we have a motion to defer. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Carr. I guess was no discussion on a motion to defer, so I'll ask the question. All in favor? It's carried. I think it would be wise, now that we have deferred the resolution, if members of council have any suggestions as to what you'd like to see come back from the director, she's going to now, I assume, return to discuss with the Montgomerys this. It's only been deferred, so that means a continued discussion with them on this subject. We have heard some comments. The Deputy Mayor mentioned not reducing the fee, I think, or I think that's what he suggested. So that was one suggestion. And I think we've also heard comments about, the fact that the canteen just isn't open during the times when things are going on in the Plex in particular. So, and I think that that's certainly something we've all observed anecdotally, myself included. I think that having some continued discussion, maybe some more hard and fast commitments to operate for the 1 year, to having the facility open during important events. I think it's difficult, as the Deputy Mayor I think correctly pointed out, to ask people not to bring in outside food and beverages when they have no idea whether the facility is going to be open. And I also think that it's difficult it's difficult for our operation and for the entire perspective of the municipality, or the perception of the municipality, to have those signs up in the Plex saying no outside food and beverages. It's a negative message as soon as you come into the building, and then to have nothing there. It's sort of a double whammy. So those are, I think, maybe that's my encapsulation of the comments made by the committee. And if we could receive back some assurances, I think. So 1 year, and I understand, and it is difficult, and it has been difficult. I mean, it's not just like we can snap our fingers and 1,000 people will line up to rent these things, and we've seen how hard this is. So we have 1 year. We're talking 1 year here to try to work with these folks to try to get their operation where they need it to be profitable, and where we need it to be successful for the community. I think that's not a bad approach, but maybe we could get some more assurances back that some of these issues that we've raised here will be addressed by the tenant before we go ahead and sign that 1 year agreement. The Deputy Mayor has something further.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then the second part of that would be that we look at putting out a tender for the Southampton Coliseum food booth.
We can put that to the director to discuss with the Montgomerys, and maybe come back to us with her recommendation as to whether or not that's might be an appropriate approach. Is that fair, Jane? Okay. So it's been deferred, and you have suggestions. If there's nothing further, then we can move on. So that moves on to the third one, staff report to authorize a lease with the Society of Energy Professionals and the director. And your mic's not on there. Sorry.
Thank you. Now that I'm done. Before you read the recommendation, though, this evening, I'd like to introduce Mr. Michael Gade. He's here this evening from the Society of United Professionals, and he'd like to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name's Mike Gade. I'm with the Society of United Professionals. We used to be the Energy Professionals. We've gotten bigger. We branched out, and we're looking at professionals of all different designations in the province. Very pleased that you've had a few minutes for us tonight, because I think this is a great news story. This is a great news partnership where we are able to partner with our communities. I'm a Kincardine resident, but after hearing the wonderful financials tonight, I might start looking at Saugeen Shores. I think you guys got a great news message there for sure. But this is about a partnership, and it's a partnership and sponsorship in our communities that are so important to us. You know, when we look at Bruce Power, where most of my people work, there's a lot of new people coming to the area. And certainly part of building a career and having a family here is the ability to secure medical services. And having that family doctor is so important to us. And, you know, that's certainly why this initiative is certainly so important to us. I know personally, when we moved here, we were able to secure a family doctor. And we had that same family doctor for about 25 years, and it was awesome. But as we know, those family doctors, especially the more experienced ones, they often carry the patient load that requires 2 to 3 new doctors to replace them. So the new doctor will take only about a third to a quarter of a patient load of one of those most experienced doctors. So when my doctor retired, it needed 2 or 3 people to replace him in Kincardine. We were able to do that, but there's still a shortage. There's still shortages in Kincardine, where we own 2 houses and have a similar arrangement, modeled after our first success here in Saugeen Shores. So I'm really pleased to be able to partner with Saugeen Shores and renew our commitment for a further 5 years, because I think this is a very important thing we can do to support the communities that we live in, our members live in, and certainly appreciate what our communities can do together, because for us it's all about unions building stronger communities. So I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, and we appreciate your time. Thanks for those words, and thank you for this partnership. I was I can't remember how many years ago it was now, but I was there when we first got 190 Morpeth Street, and when we first toured the facility, and it's been this great partnership for so long, and so many of our doctors and locums have had the opportunity to be in that space, live in that space on a temporary basis, or sometimes even on a longer term basis, and that's helped ease those issues that you just have so eloquently encapsulated, that we have faced for a long time and continue to face. And that's why this partnership continues to be important. And I know we all around here really appreciate, it's the Society of United Professionals. Okay, I have to remember that. Is there any other comments or questions from the Vice Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to echo your thoughts, and I certainly would be supporting this recommendation. And if I could ask, of staff, Mr. Mayor, to send off a letter of thank you to the society. I mean, the society name is all around the community, whether it's the splash pad or the skate park or the library, and the list goes on and on and on and on. You people are always contributing towards community projects, Michael, and I just wanted to let you know I'm personally I'm very much appreciative of what you do in our community. I did physician recruitment tours for a number of years, and I picked prospective doctors up at these facilities that you people own, and so those residents are key in our community. And just thank you for what you're doing, and please pass on our thanks to your members.
Thank you for the support, and certainly thank you for the recognition. Yeah, beyond doctor recruitment, we're so proud of all the other ways we can help our communities, because it is about building stronger communities.
Anything further from other committee members? Well, thank you very much. And did I read the recommendation or not? No, it's gotten past me. You see the recommendation there. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so that then takes us on to 7.6, Communications and Petitions for Committee of the Whole Action. And we have one motion there, a motion from the Police Board, and we'll look to the committee for direction. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a member of the Police Services Board, is my name that was on the motion put forward. What I would like to see is that we refer this back to staff to take another look at it, so we can properly plan for the implementation of the surplus program going forward.
Okay, so that's a motion to refer to staff. Is that seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor? Can we extend our expectation for that out to the 2020 budget discussion? It would be an appropriate time, I think, to refer that. I know staff, that would give staff some time to respond, and there's some ongoing discussions going on between staff and the police, Chief of Police and the Police Services Board, putting together sort of an agreement that's going to formalize this and make it work going forward. So if I can suggest that slight amendment, we'll refer to staff for a report back as part of the 2020 budget discussions. The Vice Deputy Mayor?
I just wanted to say that, it's something, I remember a month or two ago we had a request here from SMART to finance midterm in between budgets for their capital replacement of their vehicles. And this council, encouraged SMART to go back and have deferred to the 2020 budget. We did that, and I think councils in the past too have kind of frowned upon a little bit. Taking a look at budget items that are midterm like this. But I just want to congratulate our police chief for coming in with a surplus. I think he's to be commended, and I think Deputy Mayor Math is absolutely right. We by deferring to the 2020 budget for discussions. So.
Yeah, and just in fairness to the board and in sort of understanding the process, this discussion really started in the 2019 budget, and so has carried forward, and it's taking time for us to straighten it out. So it wasn't really dropped on its midterm. It's just a continuous discussion that we started a few months back. So anyway, we'll sort it out in the coming months. We'll sort it out in the 2020 budget. So you have a recommendation. All in favor? Carried. So that moves us now on to communications and petitions for committee of the whole information, and there's 6 items there. Any questions on any of those? Don't see any. So there's item 8 reports of municipal councillors policy, and my report there for your information. And then item 9 is a report of department heads. And we have 1 information report on the Southampton Water Pollution Control Plant Class Environmental Assessment. And does the Director of Infrastructure and Development have any comments she'd like to make on that? Yeah, sure.
Through Mr. Mayor, I'm going to be very brief on this. The Class CA is about the water pollution control plant or the sewage plant in Southampton, and we're at a great time in this study right now. We've got the public information returned to us by June 14th. I have 3 copies of the comment forms here on paper if any of you want to put some thoughts towards it. I encourage all of you to look on the website, look at the 3 alternatives, because we're meeting this coming week with Aqua and the operators, and we're going to look at it the consultant's analysis and their technical review of how they've come up with their preferred alternative. So right now would be the prime time for you guys to put your thoughts back to us so we can confirm the preferred alternative, and then we'll start looking at design alternatives for that preferred alternative.
Questions or comments to that from any member? Seeing none, so that brings us to the end of the agenda and announcements by members, and I'll ask the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Summer is just about upon us. Not that I'm counting down the next 4 days or anything, but starting tonight, we have all our local public schools will be hosting their graduation ceremony. So if you get a chance to get out and see the kids, if you have any children, grandchildren, or friends, relatives that are in there, it's a fantastic evening. Not only is it grade 8 graduation, but I have the opportunity on Thursday night to be presenting kindergarten graduation certificates to the students from L'École Saugeen Central. And then if you have time Friday night around 4:30, you can go down to the beach for the local fashion show known as the SDSS Prom. All the graduating students from Saugeen District will be down at the beach for their annual photo shoot before they go off to dinner and the evening festivities. And this weekend will be topped off by on Monday night the Chamber of Commerce fireworks at the Flag in Southampton. So weather permitting, and hopefully we have the forecast says right now it's supposed to be nice. Come on down to the Flag just before dusk, get a spot in the beach because beach spots are at a little premium right now, and watch the fireworks.
Vice Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I attended a Port Elgin Cenotaph. I'm a member of the Port Elgin Cenotaph Committee here in town, and it's a wonderful, wonderful facility, one of the nicest cenotaphs, if not the nicest, in the province of Ontario, something we should be very, very proud of. And so I attended their annual meeting last week as a member, and Michael Atkinson was re-elected as chair, and Norma Dudgeon was re-elected as secretary-treasurer. And these are very hard-working volunteers. I just wanted to thank Michael and Norma, and Harry Tady's a member, and a couple of others. And I just wanted to thank that committee for all the good work they do. And take a drive by sometime. Our park staff partner with the Cenotaph Committee to make that facility look pretty darn nice. It's a really, really nice facility. So something we should be very proud of. And this Saturday morning, Mr. Mayor, I think you're attending a little bit later, but you're coming. I think I'm representing you. The trolley rides start this Saturday morning. at 10 o'clock, and I'll be boarding the trolley, and the Chamber of Commerce have done a really, really good job, I guess, reinventing the trolley this year. That for $5 on and off, you can. It's an all-day pass, and there's some commentary on there. They have a pre-taped message as they do the 1-hour tour. You find out about all the highlights of Saugeen Shores along the tour, and that's happening this Saturday, so I'll be attending. And I guess maybe even having a ribbon cutting, I'm not sure, but look forward. That's a good service by the Chamber.
Councilor Schreier.
Thank you. Just one announcement. On Monday, July the 1st at 10 a.m. will be the Saugeen Rail Trail opening, ribbon cutting of the paved accessible trail, River Street and Wellington. There will be a scavenger hunt, draws, bike safety, rodeo, repair demo as well. So make sure everybody can come out. Thank you.
Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I have two items this evening. First, just a congratulations to the Saugeen Shores Minor Baseball Association, who facilitated a tournament this past weekend, which saw dozens of teams into the area. As Deputy Mayor Matheson says, if we build it, they will come. They're coming now, and we can only assume that things will be bigger and brighter as the Lamont Sports Complex continues to evolve. And secondly, That's enough. Okay. We're into our fourth week of the Port Elgin Farmers Market coming up this Wednesday. So the Farmers Market occurs every Wednesday from June 5th to September 4th, put on by the Port Elgin BIA in Coulter Parquet. Thank you to all those who are vendors and continue to support the market as you can. Now you
We'll go to Councilor Grace. Nothing this evening. Councilor Carr. Councilor Mayette.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I just want to make an announcement that on July 1st, the Rotary Club of Southampton will be hosting barbecue and beer tent in downtown Southampton, and in lead up to the fireworks display for Canada Day. And also one business that I got to attend, a new business in town called the Blue Heron Healing Center, opened up recently, which is up right near where I live on a property that was purchased recently. And they have healing and yoga and massage and those types of things, which if you're into that kind of stuff, it's a great facility, and I had a great time at their grand opening. Thanks.
Thank you. I've reported to you a number of my things over the last couple of weeks in my report, but I did want to mention that I was able to attend the opening of the new Sharon Barfoot art exhibit at the museum, which is really just a beautiful exhibit of her works, an outstanding local artist, and I would really encourage anybody who's anywhere near the museum to make sure to go up to that exhibit and check it out. It's well worth your time. So, with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor? We're adjourned. We'll reconvene at 1:45.